With me today is Lucy Owens, and she is the expert personal stylist and image consultant for female professionals and leaders, having helped countless women to overcome the struggle of choosing the right outfits for the workplace. And it is a struggle. As someone who has climbed the corporate ladder herself, Lucy understands the immense power of looking and feeling confident. And she knows firsthand the ripple effect this has on the ability of women to speak up, be seen, and be heard. And we're going to be talking about this today. So, welcome, Lucy.
Thank you, Julie. It's really, really great to be here today with you.
Yes, I'm so happy that you're here. And we're going to be talking about being really intentional with how we dress. And I love what you say about the enabling women to speak up and be heard, because I think that's so important for women in the workplace. But before we get into that, there is a question I'd love to ask you, which is, if you were the leader of the world for a day, what would be the one thing you would change and why?
This got me thinking, Julie, this question, because there would probably be a whole host of things that I would love to change. But I think what I would love to see is more women in leadership roles and positions, which really is, I guess, has become one of my missions, particularly through my business. But women bring such a different energy, a different way of looking at things, a different perspective to things. And we have started to make a lot of shifts and positive change in that space. But I would love to see that, just go, 10 times, 100 times that, and to see more women rise. And I think that starts with, education's a big one, but empowering women. And to help them feel confident to move into those positions and to achieve those goals. So I guess what I would do, Julie, is maybe I would just douse everybody, in loads of self-confidence so that women can actually rise up and I think just really fulfill their true potential.
Yeah, I love that. And it's been really interesting to hear the different responses to this question. So I think it gives a real insight into what's really important to people. And, as we go through, there'll be common themes that I gather, which, I'll share. So in terms of what are the real hot topics, and that is definitely one of them. So
Yeah.
Lucy. Now, what I'd love to start with is, I find your journey to where you are now something that's super interesting. So can you share with us a little bit about your journey to where you are now and where your passion for styling came from?
Yeah. Look, it has been a really interesting journey for me. When I was a little girl, I can always remember going into my mother's wardrobe and being fascinated by the clothes. And, I loved trying on her clothes. I just, from a really early age, it was something that I just, gravitated towards. And I was really tuned into like the way that fashion and style made me feel. And that became something that was very useful for me as I went off into, the corporate world. So I always wanted to work in fashion and do something in that space. And I ended up going into and working for some really beautiful luxury fashion brands and doing the marketing and PR. And so definitely my image and my style was important in those roles. I was representing those brands. But what I found when I was in the workplace was that understanding how to dress in a way that made me feel confident really contributed to me being able to get the roles that I wanted and, just feel like I was capable when perhaps sometimes I didn't actually, I doubted, my own sort of capability on the inside. But it's kind of, clothing can be like a bit of a cloak that we can put on, right, to help us step into some of those situations and just give us that, that added layer of confidence. So I was always very, I guess, just conscious of the way that my style, could help me in my corporate career. And as I moved out of the fashion sort of landscape and into some more corporate roles, I was sort of in corporate communication roles and more, let's say, some more sort of conservative corporate environments. Again, I kind of drew back on my style being able to really propel me forward and, as I said, like, get those opportunities and the roles that I wanted. So I count my rise up the corporate ladder, a lot of that was due to me showing up and demonstrating that I was ready for the next role. I think that was a really important part for me. But as it so happened, when I was in my early 30s, I just felt like the corporate world was no longer for me. I wanted to do something different. And I ended up, actually, I sort of started, I guess, this period of transition in my life where I went to a beautiful, beautiful retreat in Bali, and I got a bit of a message about, I needed to go quit my job and I needed to move overseas again. That was all I knew at the time when I was there. And so I did that. I came back to Australia. I quit my job. I ended up moving overseas. I went to South America, and I spent 3 years there. And that's where I discovered that my true calling was actually going to be helping women utilize their style as a tool in the workplace and to build their confidence, as it had for me. I really wanted to, that was just a real passion for me, that I really wanted to come back and dedicate my business to doing that, and that's what I did.
Amazing. So was there a calling to South America, or was that a place where you just wanted to go? I mean, I remember when I first wanted to go overseas, I wanted to go to Europe.
Yep. Do you know what? I have traveled a lot, and I lived in London when I was in my 20s, and I'd traveled all around Europe. I'd kind of done Asia, and honestly, I was in my lounge room and I have a very beautiful map that was on my wall, and I looked at, the different parts of the world, and I can remember seeing South America and thinking, well, that looks really interesting, and I've never been there. And
Oh, your
that
courage.
honestly just made the decision. And I was going to go off to Chile, and a girlfriend said to me, no, you need to be in Buenos Aires. It's very elegant. They've got a beautiful mix of, Spanish and Italian. That's where you need to be. And so there, the decision was made. That's where I went.
I love it. I love it. Now, you touched on how you dressed enabled you to communicate a particular message.
Yeah.
So how important is clothing to communication and the message that we're sending to others?
Super important. It's incredibly important, because I think at the end of the day, we have to remember that we're visual creatures. And, it's really impossible not to say something with your style. It is the way that we initially, at least, are really going to interpret things about someone. And the visual is really what helps us form an opinion. And so, I see it as a wonderful way that we can communicate to other people things about our personality, our values. It might be about our mood and the way that we're feeling on a certain day. So it is an incredible tool for communication, and I think when we think about how would you like to be seen? Do you want to be seen as a thought leader, expert in your field, as someone who's approachable, as someone who's business-like, whatever it is? If you can think about how you'd like to be seen, then you can be quite intentional about crafting that message through your clothing, through the right cuts, the lines, the colors, the styles. All of those things can combine and come together to help you communicate that message. So I really do see it as an incredible tool. And when we're conscious, as I said, when we think about with intention about what we want to say, and we consciously select what we wear, that's when we can send an accurate message. Because I think it's really important as well that we are communicating through our style an accurate representation of who we are, of what we can bring to the table as well. Our personality, of course, but people are going to garner other things about us, about our capabilities and our credibility and our authority from what we're wearing. So I think it's really important that we can choose to wear clothing consciously that is going to support who we actually are and what we can bring to the table.
I love that. So it's really, really thinking about, okay, so how do I want to be perceived? So it's like thinking about the outcome first,
Yep.
and then sort of dressing in line with that. And I would think that it would also create congruence between words and actions too. Like, if I was to meet you and you're saying, you're a stylist and you work with professional women, that you rock up in your tracksuit, albeit it might be a brand, but I'll be thinking that's just not the style I really am aspiring to be. That's what I'd like to be in my bedroom or in my lounge room. But yeah, so I suppose it works together hand in hand with the brand that you're wanting to be perceived by, and the brand you're wanting to create, and the clothing really enhances that.
Absolutely. And, I love that word congruency, Julie, because I think, as whether you're a business owner now or whether you're in corporate, we've all kind of got, I guess, this, sort of brand around us, right? That's made up of, interactions that people have with us, our online persona and so forth. And I think when we know who we are and the person we're aspiring to be and how we want others to perceive us, then we can have a congruent message through our visual presentation. Of course, we have to back that up with actions. That's really important. But it's that the congruent visual representation is so important to not confuse people.
Yes.
We want to be clear in our message.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when I was having a little look-see about Lucy, I found something about archetypes, style archetypes, which really intrigued me. So does understanding your style archetype help with this and enable you to create like a really accurate message for yourself? So can you tell me about what archetypes mean?
Yes, absolutely. It's one of my favorite topics. So there's really two parts to archetypes. So it really refers to being able to identify the styles and the elements of style that you would naturally gravitate towards, and what would feel good for you to wear based on your personality and your preferences.
Okay.
So, when we understand our style archetype or archetypes, most people have more than one. That can really enhance our own level of just understanding who we are. Our level of self-awareness. That enables us to make really informed fashion choices. So that's one piece of the style archetypes and what it does. It's really about that connection with our genuine, authentic self. The other part of it is that each archetype, I work with 6, sends a different message. So, depending on what you want to convey, you can, kind of really draw on different archetypes to help you send the right message. So,
Okay.
for example, something that is a piece of clothing that is, quite, let's say, feminine or soft in its styling is going to send a really different message to, let's say, a really kind of, structured, classic sort of power suit, for example. Maybe that's in a red. Um, those two pieces of clothing have really different message, and they'll be interpreted really differently by people. So style archetypes is about finding that really beautiful balance between dressing for who you are and the message that you want to send.
Because you mentioned something really important there, which is around authenticity.
Mm,
Because when we're trying to be someone that we're not, we just cannot pull it off.
no.
So can I ask what your archetype is?
So I'm a mix, Julie, and everyone is like
Yeah.
everyone. So I have there's six in total. So everyone will have a dominant one that plays in more to their style. So my dominant would be sort of a sophisticate type style, and then people will have one, two, sometimes three
Yep.
what I would call secondary archetypes. And you might just have a touch of those. Like I have a touch of, dramatic, feminine, and classic. And so I will draw on those, on some days, depending on your mood as well and, what you've got on. It might be, I want to bring in a little bit more drama to my outfit today, or I'm going to, bring in something that's a bit more feminine today.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly powerful when you have an understanding of those and how they connect to who you are and the different parts of our personality. At the end of the day, style should be fun, and we get to kind of explore that and say, which part of me do I want to, kind of bring out today and play with today and have on display today.
Hmm.
So I have a whole module dedicated just to style archetypes and figuring out your archetype in my program because it is such an important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, I love that. And we're going to be sharing a link for the archetype quiz too. So you can
Yes.
find out what archetype you are. So
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah.
So now tell me how women can use their style to connect with their inner power. Like how can we do that?
I think, Julie, the most important, and when it comes to style, is to have a level of self awareness about who you are, which goes back to what we are just talking about, those archetype. It is understanding who you are at your core and then dressing in a way that honors that person. And as you just said before, when we try and be something that we're not, it just doesn't work. So it's about honoring who we are through our clothing and dressing in a way like having the knowledge to dress in a way that flatters you, because that, for me, that's accessing your inner power. That's when you feel confident. That is when you feel, empowered. And I often ask women, I say, think about an occasion or a situation where you felt like your absolute best version of you, like you were, I am ready to take on the world. And most women will always remember what they were wearing at that time. And it might be, it's, a favorite dress that makes them feel $1,000,000 or whatever outfit it is. And, we can access that feeling every day. I want women to be able to access that feeling every day, and it's absolutely possible. And so for me, being able to wake up in the morning, get dressed, and put on something that makes you feel 100%, right there is a huge, connection and access to our inner power before we've even walked out the door.
Mm. And inner power is really confidence, isn't it?
I think it's confidence, and I think it's a self assuredness. Yeah, it's a knowing, I guess, of who we are and the value that we bring, and being able to reflect that on the outside.
Yeah. While being anchored to it on the inside.
Yes.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. Because you've mentioned it a couple of times in terms of self-awareness, and I think that's incredibly important to have that awareness around who you are and what you stand for.
Yeah.
Um, because when you said that before about tell me a time when you felt the most confident, I think because of my corporate days and when I was going through it, I was a suit girl. I was a
Yeah.
suit girl, wear a great shirt, put the heels on, and I was on.
You
And
are
I
on.
could
Yeah.
conquer the world in my suit. And I still feel that way when I put it on, say for a
Yeah.
photo shoot or whatever, or when I do a keynote, and I'm like, I am on, sister. So it's just how I feel really confident in a jacket.
Yeah. There you go. Sometimes it's just knowing, like, what's the one piece of clothing that you could put on to
Yeah,
give you that feeling of like, here I am. I'm
yeah,
ready.
yeah.
For me, it's a jacket as well. Does it every time.
Yes, love the jacket, love the structure.
Yeah. And in today, because we're not, I'm not in a, we're not often going into corporate offices, it can just be putting that on with something more casual on the bottom, like a,
Yeah,
great pair of jeans.
yeah, 100%. All right, so what are your easy tips? Because we can make this so difficult.
Yes.
We are wanting to develop a really intentional wardrobe. I know you've shared a lot of info with us today, but what are just some maybe, I don't know, 3 or 5 like really easy tips that we can use to create an intentional wardrobe? I love that word, intentional.
Yes, I do too. And I really like to think of a wardrobe that is, when it's intentional, it's fit for purpose, it's functional, but it's also, it's an uplifting collection of items. That's really what our wardrobe should be. It's the first thing that we see every day. So, we want it to be a really beautiful space. Some really easy tips. So we've already touched on archetypes. And that level of, just when we have a level of self-knowledge, then we know what we're looking for. So that definitely enables us to be intentional. So at least, figuring out, and as I said, you can do this through my style quiz, figuring out like your dominant style archetype. The quiz will help you do that. The next one is about shopping with intention, because this is where a lot of us get derailed, right? We go to the stores, there is a plethora of options. Things are on sale. You might have, retail, sales assistant, recommending items, and it can start to become overwhelming, frustrating. Shopping with intention is about preparation and planning before that. And not going, like, never shop without having a list, and without having done some research beforehand. So, ideally, you're looking in your wardrobe, you're looking at what you've already got so you can identify the gaps.
Yeah.
If you've got 5 pairs of black pants, you probably don't need to be buying another pair of black pants, but it might be that you need some blouses to go with those. And that's what you're going looking for. It's just blouses. And you can be really, really targeted and do a bit of online research before you go. Check out some stores, some brands that you maybe usually visit, and also perhaps some brands that you don't normally visit, and have a look so you get an idea of what you're going with. You're not just going off shopping, kind of out into the wild west without a plan, because that's often what it can feel like. So planning and preparation is super important. And when you are thinking of purchasing something, I always share with my clients the rule of 3. You need to be able to make 3 outfits with that item from clothing or items already in your wardrobe. So if you're buying a blouse, then you need to have, let's say, for example, a skirt and 2 pairs of pants that blouse is going to work back with, to make it a really worthy purchase in your wardrobe and to know that you're going to get wear out of it.
Mm.
And so when we stop and think about that before we just do a purchase, that's where, we start to become way more intentional and think we have a purpose, behind pieces that we're purchasing.
I love that. 3 outfits from that purchase.
Yep. Yes.
That's a great tip. I think that's my favorite.
Okay, good. Use that one.
Absolutely. My gosh, Lucy, there's so much I still want to ask you, but we're coming up to time and it's been so wonderful chatting with you. So I'd love to know, is there a final message that you would like to leave with those listening?
My final message, Julie, I think is great style, having good style, feeling, stylish. It is not, it's not dependent on being a certain weight. I know that can feel like a barrier to women. It is not dependent on looking a certain way, as often, the media will kind of, tell us. It really is about, and I'll come back to, this point again. I feel I've said it a number of times, but it really does come back to just having uh, like a level of self-awareness and actually like loving yourself, who you are inside and out, and being able to embrace that.
Hmm.
That is, I think, a really, really, really powerful part of style, and learning to dress who you are in the most beautiful way.
That's a gorgeous message, Lucy, and a really powerful one as well. So, thank you for sharing that and also for all of the wonderful things that you've shared with us on the podcast today. And thank you for empowering women to feel fantastic and harness their inner power, enabling them to rise, as you say, which is something that you're passionate about. And thank you for being a guest on Leading You.
Oh, Julie, it was a pleasure. I love talking about all of this, and I hope it's been helpful for your listeners.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lucy.
Thanks, Julie.